Hey y'all, it's Monday morning, April 14th, and we welcome you to another edition of This Week at AMG. It really is a blessing to be able to share with you every week what the Lord is doing around the world through AMG. Well, today we are going to speak a little bit about media evangelism. It is our focus this month, and if you read AMG News, you will see stories that focus on this specific ministry. This ministry does a great job of getting the gospel to large numbers of people very cost effectively, and it also goes into homes, into Muslim homes, Hindu homes, places where a Christian worker would have a hard time entering. Well, media evangelism, what we used to call newspaper evangelism, because when we first started it was focused on newspapers, comes out of the passion of Dr. Spiros Zodiatis, who led AMG for 50 years, and he was really passionate and really wanted to get the gospel to as many people as possible. So he came up with the concept of buying space on newspapers and magazines and putting the gospel message as a paid advertisement. And over the years, God has used this tool to bring many people to Him. Many have come to a saving knowledge of Christ because of newspaper evangelism. Today we have a very special guest that is going to share with us about Dr. Z's passion for newspaper evangelism and how that led to the beginning of the ministry, of AMG's ministry in India, where more than 100,000 people each month are reached through the partnership effort that is going on there. Our special guest is Mrs. Joan Zodiatis, who alongside her husband ministers so faithfully for so many years, and she continues to be an inspiration and example for all of us.
What a privilege it is to be here and bring back some stories, how AMG began and the work grew. It's phenomenal what God has done over the years. When my husband first came to this country, there was a group of Greek people, a Greek community in New York City, and he was brought here by two Greek Christians who had businesses in New York, and they wanted someone to reach these Greek people. They had a Greek newspaper, and my husband got the idea, if we could put a gospel message in that newspaper, we would reach all the Greeks in New York City. And he got really excited about that, and that was his first really jumping into mission work. That developed, and we got the articles in there. Today it's still going on after almost 70 years. My husband, Spiros Zodiatis, was so excited about reaching all these people with one little lad. You didn't have to run around and try to corner someone on the street to talk to them about the Lord. Just one little lad and you could reach thousands. Well, it worked. And so every time he'd meet a missionary or someone from another country, he would try to tell them, this is what you should do to reach your people. Spiros had a friend who came from, I believe it was Greece. He was a doctor, and he was going to complete his studies in one of the New York City hospitals. And as the story goes, he had asked for a private room. He didn't want a room with anybody. When he got here, he got here late. His plane was delayed, and he got here late, and when he got here, they had given away his room. So he was put in with another doctor there, and it was Dr. David Chigurupati from India. And that's right there is where our work began. Anyway, we didn't see much of this man at all after, but we did get to know Dr. David, I will call him, Dr. David. And he would come to our house and we'd have time together. But whenever my husband got with him, he'd say, now, David, you should put the gospel in the newspapers in India. You could reach thousands that way. And so time went by, and one day the phone rang, and it was Dr. David, and he said, I've got the man for you. He's right here And he's leaving on the plane in a very short time. If you want to meet him, you come right into New York. And we were living in New Jersey, just across the river at the time. And so Spiros jumped in the car and went into New York, and they had agreed they'd meet somewhere on Times Square. But he only had an hour to get with him. And I said, well, where did you go in that hour? He said, we just sat in the car and drove around and around while I was telling him what we wanted done. He didn't have money to pay for like newspaper evangelism and so on. Children's work began, and it just grew and grew and grew. So he came to New York to find people who would support newspaper gospel messages, who would support children, and so on. And when he went back, he went to work.
I hope you enjoyed listening to Mrs. Odiadis. It's really special. And please be praying for our media evangelism efforts. It's a very strategic ministry. It will go into homes that no Christian can go. And please pray that many hearts will be touched. And also pray for the resources that are needed to carry on this ministry in the different places around the world. Today it involves still newspapers and magazines, but also the internet and radio. And it's a great way to reach people that may never hear about the gospel in any other way. Well, that's it. Thank you for joining us, and we hope to see you next week at This Week at AMG.